They took her for a joke, but he saved her. The Apache girl's story. The sun was high over the dusty town of Redstone Crossing, its light bouncing off the wooden roofs and flickering neon signs. The year was 2084, and though the town looked old-fashioned with its wooden saloons and wagon wheels, it hummed with strange futuristic energy. Steam-powered carts moved alongside robotic horses, and people carried small gadgets that glowed with soft blue light. In the middle of this unusual mix of the old and the new, a young Apache girl named Nayeli walked carefully through the market. Nayeli was small, no older than 16, with dark hair braided tightly down her back. She carried a basket of strange herbs, their leaves glowing faintly under the neon signs. She had traveled far from her village to sell them. Her people depended on these plants. They contained energy that could power small machines or even help with medicine. It was rare knowledge passed down through her family for generations. As Nayeli stepped into the crowded market, she immediately noticed the curious stares. Merchants called out, "Come see the little girl selling glowing weeds." Some laughed openly. Others pointed and whispered. Nayeli's stomach tightened, but she held her head high. She had faced prejudice before, and she would not let it stop her. She arranged her herbs neatly on a small wooden table, hoping someone would understand their value. The first customer approached, a rough-looking man with a cybernetic arm. He picked up a handful of the glowing leaves and sneered. "What is this?" "Some kind of joke?" Nayeli forced herself to smile. "These herbs are very rare. They can power machines, heal injuries, even help grow crops in the desert," she explained softly, her voice steady despite her nerves. The man laughed and threw the herbs back onto the table. "Machines? Crops? Little girl, you must be dreaming. Who would buy this nonsense?" Other merchants joined in, mocking her small stature and the strange glow of her plants. One man holding a hovering crate said loudly, "Why don't you go play with your toys, kid?" "This is serious business." Nayeli bit her lip. She had expected challenges, but the ridicule stung. She looked around, hoping someone might see the truth, but the crowd only grew louder, jeering and shaking their heads. From the edge of the market, a rider appeared. His boots kicked up dust as he slowed his hoverbike horse to a stop. He was tall, with weathered skin and eyes that had seen too many battles. His name was Jace, a lone rancher known for wandering the frontier, helping those in need. He watched the scene quietly, his sharp eyes studying Nayeli and the crowd. Jace dismounted smoothly, landing near Nayeli's table. "Hey," he said, his voice calm but strong. "Leave her alone." The crowd turned to look at him. The man with the cybernetic arm scoffed. "And who are you? Another fool here to play hero?" Jace didn't answer immediately.
He simply stepped closer, scanning the crowd. The hovering crates and carts shifted slightly, as if sensing his presence.
With a slow, steady movement, Jace lifted his hand, and the crowd felt an unexpected pressure. Not violent, but commanding. "I said leave her alone," he repeated. A silence fell. Some of the men exchanged uneasy glances. Jace wasn't threatening anyone with weapons, but there was something about him, a quiet confidence that made people pause. Finally, the cybernetic arm man grunted and shoved his crate forward. "Fine, but don't think we won't laugh at you again, little girl." Nayeli let out a shaky breath and smiled weakly. "Thank you," she whispered. Jace nodded and glanced at the herbs. The faint glow under the neon light caught his attention. "These aren't ordinary plants," he said softly. "Where did you get them?" Nayeli hesitated, then decided to trust him. "From my village, deep in the desert. We've used them for generations. They're very powerful, but very few people believe in them." Jace crouched slightly to meet her gaze. "I believe. And I think someone out there will pay attention to what you have. You just need help to get them to the right people." Before Nayeli could respond, the man with the hovering crate returned, trying to grab a handful of herbs. Jace acted quickly, placing himself between the man and Nayeli. "I said leave her alone," he warned. This time, his tone was sharper, firmer. The man hesitated, then backed away, muttering under his breath. The market slowly returned to normal, the crowd dispersing to their own business. Nayeli gathered her herbs carefully, feeling a strange mix of relief and gratitude. "Who are you?" she asked. "Name's Jace," he said, straightening and dusting off his coat. "I ride the frontier, help folks who need it. Looks like today you needed me." Nayeli smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't expected. I did. "Thank you." Jace glanced around, his eyes scanning the horizon beyond the market. "This town isn't safe for someone carrying something as valuable as these. If you want to deliver them, you need someone to ride with you. someone who knows the desert and the dangers that come with it. Nayeli's heart raced. She had always traveled alone, but the thought of having someone experienced beside her was reassuring. She nodded. I'd like that. I need to get these herbs to the lab outside the canyon. They can help my village survive the drought. Jay studied her for a moment, then nodded. Then we ride together. But you should know, the road won't be easy. Not everyone out there will see your herbs as a gift. Some will see them as a prize. Nayeli's fingers tightened around the basket. She had faced mockery, and now she would face danger. But for the first time, she didn't feel alone. The town of Redstone Crossing faded behind them as they rode toward the edge of the desert. Nayeli's small basket of glowing herbs seemed to hum faintly, as if it understood the importance of the journey ahead. The wind whipped her hair across her face, but she didn't flinch. Jace rode beside her, silent but alert, his eyes scanning for trouble. In the distance, the rocky desert stretched endlessly, dotted with strange metallic ruins half buried in the sand. The sun began to dip, casting long shadows that danced across the dunes. Are you sure this path is safe? Nayeli asked, her voice quiet. Jace smirked slightly. Safe? Nothing in the desert is safe, but I know how to survive out here. Stick with me, and we'll make it to the canyon. Nayeli nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. She had left her village to help her people, and now, for the first time, she had someone she could rely on. As the wind carried them forward, the faint glow of her herbs grew stronger under the setting sun. Nayeli knew the journey would be difficult, but she also knew she was not alone anymore. Somewhere ahead, the desert held challenges she could not yet imagine. And somewhere ahead, her destiny waited. The market may have laughed at her, but Nayeli's determination burned brighter than ever. With Jace by her side, she was ready to face whatever the desert and the frontier threw at her next. And so, the two rode into the wide, glowing desert, a cowboy and an Apache girl, united by courage, trust, and the promise of adventure. The desert stretched endlessly, a sea of red sand under the blazing sun. The wind carried small clouds of dust that twisted like tiny tornadoes across the dunes. Nayeli clutched her basket of glowing herbs tightly as she followed Jace's hoverbike trail. Her heart pounded with excitement and fear. She had left the market behind, but the dangers of the frontier were only beginning. Jace rode beside her on his own modified hoverbike horse, its metallic legs clanking softly with each movement. He had a quiet confidence, scanning the horizon for any sign of trouble. The desert was beautiful in its harshness, with jagged rock formations and deep canyons glowing in the late afternoon light. Yet for Nayeli, beauty could not erase the anxiety in her chest. Are you sure we're going the right way? She asked, her voice nearly lost in the sound of the wind. Jace glanced at her, his eyes sharp and steady. I've been through these parts before. The canyon is just past that ridge, he said, pointing toward a distant line of jagged rocks. But stay close. The desert can change in a heartbeat. Nayeli nodded, gripping her basket tighter. The glow of the herbs pulsed faintly in the warm light, almost as if they were alive. She had never left her village before, and this desert seemed to stretch forever, a mixture of danger and wonder. Suddenly the wind shifted, carrying a metallic clatter toward them. Nayeli froze. Jace's hand instinctively went to the side of his hoverbike, and his eyes narrowed. From behind a dune, a group of scavengers appeared, riding rusted hoverbikes with glowing red lights. Their leader, a tall man with a mechanical eye, laughed cruelly. Well, well, he said, his voice carried over the wind. Looks like we found something worth taking. Nayeli's stomach dropped. The herbs. She knew they were valuable, but she had not expected anyone to chase them so soon. Jace's hand lifted slightly, signaling Nayeli to hold on. Stay close, he said. They want the herbs, but we won't give them up. The scavengers surged forward, their bikes kicking up sand in huge clouds. Nayeli's hoverbike shook beneath her as she gripped the handles. She had never ridden like this before, and the speed terrified her. But Jace stayed calm, weaving his bike skillfully through the dunes, his eyes always watching the attackers. Nayeli remembered the traps she had read about in her village books, simple tricks using sand, rocks, and the herbs themselves. Wait, she shouted. I can help. Jace nodded. Do it, but be quick. With trembling hands, Nayeli reached into her basket and sprinkled a few glowing leaves behind them. The sand around the leaves seemed to shimmer faintly. As the scavengers' hoverbikes crossed over the glowing herbs, their engines sputtered, sparks flying. Some of the riders swerved violently, crashing into small dunes. The desert swallowed their bikes in clouds of dust. Good thinking, Jace shouted. Keep going. Nayeli's heart raced, but she felt a surge of pride. She had contributed, and it worked. Yet more scavengers appeared ahead, blocking their path through the narrow canyon entrance. Jace slowed just enough to let Nayeli catch her breath. "These rocks," he said, pointing toward the canyon walls. "We can use them. Watch me." Jace veered sharply to the right, his hoverbike gliding over a small ledge. Nayeli followed, shaking but determined. The canyon walls were steep, and the hoverbike struggled to maintain balance, but Jace's skills were unmatched. He led her through a maze of rock formations, each turn more dangerous than the last. The scavengers were persistent, their engines roaring as they pursued them through the tight canyon. One of them fired a pulse blast, narrowly missing Jace. Sparks flew, striking a rock wall and sending small pebbles raining down. Nayeli ducked instinctively, holding her basket in front of her. "Keep your head down!" Jace shouted, turning sharply again. "Use the rocks." Nayeli remembered another trick from her village. Plants could conduct energy in unusual ways. She scattered a few more herbs along the rocky ledge. As the scavengers' bikes passed over them, tiny pulses of energy disrupted their circuits. One bike veered uncontrollably, sliding to a stop against the canyon wall. The others hesitated, giving Jace and Nayeli a small lead. Breathing heavily, Nayeli looked at Jace. I didn't think I could do that," she said, a mixture of relief and excitement in her voice. Jace glanced at her, a rare smile breaking his stoic expression. "You're smarter than they thought. Don't ever doubt yourself." They continued deeper into the canyon, the shadows growing long as the sun dipped toward the horizon. The air cooled slightly, but the desert still hummed with danger. In the fading light, the glow from Nayeli's herbs became more pronounced, illuminating the narrow path ahead like tiny lanterns. Suddenly, one of the scavengers fired another pulse blast, hitting the rocky wall dangerously close to Nayeli. A small piece of rock broke off and tumbled down. She shrieked, but Jace reacted instantly, pulling her hoverbike sharply to the side. The rocks crashed behind them, narrowly missing the path. "You okay?" Jace asked, glancing back to make sure she was still steady. "Yes," Nayeli said, gripping her basket tighter. I think I'm getting the hang of this." Jace nodded. "Good, but we're not safe yet." The canyon bends ahead. It's narrow and rocky. If they catch us there, we could be trapped. Nayeli's stomach twisted. She had hoped the worst was behind them, but she trusted Jace. "Lead the way," she said. As they approached the bend, the canyon walls seemed to close in. The scavengers followed, their red lights flickering in the shadows. Jace slowed slightly, letting Nayeli focus. "Here's the tricky part," he said. "Follow my path exactly, and don't panic." Nayeli's hands shook, but she concentrated, her eyes on the faint glow of the herbs guiding their way. They weaved through the rocks carefully, balancing speed and precision. One misstep could mean disaster. Just as they cleared the narrowest section, a scavenger bike slammed into a rock, flipping dramatically but not completely stopping. Sparks flew, and the rider cursed loudly. The other scavengers faltered, giving Jace and Nayeli precious seconds. They finally reached a wider part of the canyon, where the ground leveled out. Jace slowed and looked back. The scavengers were still following, but the traps Nayeli had set had slowed them considerably. "You did well back there," Jace said, his tone serious but approving. "Those herbs of yours, they're more powerful than I realized." Nayeli smiled, a mixture of pride and relief. I just hope they're enough to get my village saved." Jace glanced at the horizon. The sun had set, and the desert sky was a deep purple. Stars began to sparkle faintly, and the glow from Nayeli's herbs lit their path like tiny beacons. "We're close to the hidden lab," he said, "just beyond that ridge. But we have to stay alert. Whoever is after these herbs, they won't give up easily." Nayeli took a deep breath. She had faced mockery in the market, but now she had faced danger head-on. And she had survived. With Jace beside her, she felt a newfound strength, a courage that burned brighter than the desert sun. Together, they rode on, deeper into the desert, toward the canyon where the hidden lab awaited. The chase was not over, and danger still lurked in the shadows, but Nayeli knew one thing: she would not be a victim, and she would not fail her people. Somewhere ahead, the desert held secrets and challenges she could not yet imagine, but Nayeli's heart burned with determination. And with Jace at her side, she felt ready for anything. The night air grew colder, and the distant howl of desert winds carried an unspoken warning. But Nayeli's glow and her courage lit the path forward, a tiny but powerful light in the vast, dark wilderness. The desert night was calm, but a quiet tension hung in the air. The stars shimmered faintly above the jagged canyon walls, and the glow of Nayeli's herbs lit their path like small lanterns. The wind whispered through the rocks, carrying the faint sound of distant engines, reminders that danger was never far behind. Jace slowed his hover bike, guiding Nayeli toward a narrow canyon entrance. Beyond it lay the hidden lab she had been searching for, a secret place her village had spoken of for generations. Part ruins, part advanced technology, it was built into the canyon walls, glowing faintly with energy that seemed alive. "This is it," Nayeli whispered, awe in her voice. "The lab. It's real." Jace glanced at her, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Stay alert. Even if it looks abandoned, it's not completely safe. Some people, or machines, might still be watching." Nayeli nodded. She had trained her mind for knowledge and survival, but the sight of the lab made her heart race. It was bigger than she imagined, its walls a strange mix of old stone and glowing circuits, with pipes carrying energy that hummed softly. Her people's wisdom was encoded in these walls, and she could feel the importance of the place in every vibration beneath her feet. As they entered, the narrow canyon widened into a large chamber. Broken machinery lay scattered around, and panels flickered with blinking lights. The air smelled faintly of metal and sand. Nayeli's glowing herbs cast dancing shadows on the walls, revealing symbols and devices that she recognized from her village's records. "This lab. It's exactly as my grandmother said," Nayeli murmured, moving closer to a console covered in dust. "We can amplify the herb's energy here, maybe even save my village." Jace watched her carefully, his hand resting near his hover bike. "Good. But don't let your focus blind you. We're not alone." Nayeli frowned. "What do you mean?" Before Jace could answer, a faint whirring sound echoed from above. Nayeli's eyes widened as a shadow moved across the lab's walls. A figure, half human and half machine, emerged from a hidden balcony. Its eyes glowed faintly red, scanning them like a predator. Who are you?" Nayeli asked, stepping back. The figure's mechanical voice was calm but chilling. "I am here for the herbs." "Hand them over, child, and no harm will come to you." Jace stepped in front of Nayeli. "Not happening. These herbs belong to her people, and you will not take them." The figure tilted its head. "You underestimate their value. One small plant could give me power beyond your imagination." Nayeli's heart pounded. She had anticipated challenges, but a half-machine observer was more than she had expected. She looked at Jace, who gave her a reassuring nod. "We deal with him smartly, not with force, with brains." Nayeli thought quickly. The lab itself could be their ally. She remembered the old instructions from her village. Plants, when energized, could interact with the technology around them. Carefully, she placed some herbs on a control panel. The plant's glow intensified, sending small pulses of energy through the wires. The half-machine figure tensed. Its systems flickered under the unexpected energy surge. Jace saw the opportunity. "Keep going, Nayeli, don't stop." Nayeli spread more herbs across the lab floor, their glow filling the room. Sparks flew from the panels as the energy pulse interacted with the ancient tech. The figure staggered, its mechanical systems disrupted by the plant's energy. "You're clever," it said, its voice distorted, "but cleverness won't stop me." Jace raised his hand calmly. "It might. Watch carefully." Together they moved through the lab, Nayeli placing herbs strategically and Jace guiding her past dangerous machinery. The lab seemed almost alive, responding to their movements and energy pulses. Ancient devices powered up, lights blinking in patterns that indicated the herb's energy was being amplified. Nayeli felt a surge of hope. "It's working! We can do this!" Jace glanced at the figure, still struggling to maintain balance. "But we need to finish before it recovers." The lab walls began to hum, responding to the combined energy of the plants. Panels lit up, revealing corridors and chambers hidden behind stone and metal. Nayeli realized that the lab itself could protect them if used correctly. She moved quickly, placing the last of her herbs near a central console. A wave of light surged through the lab, illuminating every corner. The half-machine figure staggered, sparks flying from its joints. It tried to advance, but the lab's energy pulses repelled it, forcing it backward. "You cannot stop," the figure hissed. Nayeli stood firm, her eyes glowing with determination. "We won't stop. Not for you, not for anyone. These herbs are for my village." Jace moved beside her, watching the figure falter. "Good. Keep it up." Almost there. The lab seemed to respond, energy flowing from the central console, through the ancient wiring and into the plants. The herbs pulsed brightly, and the figure's system sparked and faltered. Finally, with a mechanical shriek, it retreated, disappearing into the shadows. Nayeli exhaled, relief flooding her. It's gone. For now. Jace nodded, looking around the lab. We've bought time, but we need to prepare. Whoever sent that thing will come back. Nayeli moved to the central console, placing her glowing herbs carefully. She could feel their energy spreading, filling the lab with a soft, warm light. This is it, she whispered. We can amplify their power, save the village. Jace watched her, impressed. You're amazing, Nayeli. You're not just clever. You're brave, and you know how to think fast. That's what's going to save you and your people. Nayeli smiled faintly, feeling a mix of exhaustion and pride. I hope it's enough. They worked together through the night, amplifying the herbs' energy. The lab hummed and glowed, responding to their efforts. Outside, the desert was quiet, but within the hidden lab, a small pulse of hope grew stronger with every moment. Finally, after hours of careful work, Nayeli stepped back. The herbs shone brightly, their energy stabilized and amplified by the lab's technology. She could feel the power radiating from them, warm and steady. Jace placed a hand on her shoulder. You did it. Your village, it's going to be okay. Nayeli looked around the lab, feeling a sense of accomplishment she had never known. The journey had been dangerous, the challenges unexpected, but they had survived. Together they had turned the lab and the herbs into a shield, a force that could protect and heal. But even as they celebrated their small victory, a part of Nayeli knew that the future still held dangers. Whoever had sent the half-machine observer would not give up easily. The desert was full of secrets, and the lab was only the beginning of their journey. She turned to Jace, determination in her eyes. We'll be ready. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Jace nodded, a rare smile breaking his serious face. Together, he agreed. The hidden lab stood quiet once more, its walls glowing softly with energy. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, but within its protected chamber, hope burned bright. Nayeli's journey was far from over, but for the first time she felt the strength of her courage and the power of her people's knowledge. And as the night deepened, the hidden lab pulsed with light, a beacon of possibility in the vast, mysterious desert. The hidden lab glowed softly under the desert moonlight, its walls humming with the amplified energy of Nayeli's herbs. The gentle pulses of light filled the chamber, reflecting off the stone and metal, creating dancing patterns that looked almost alive. Nayeli stood near the central console, her hands hovering above the glowing plants. She could feel their warmth radiating through her fingers. For the first time, hope seemed tangible, like something she could hold. Jace leaned against his hoverbike, scanning the shadows outside the lab's entrances. He had been alert since sunset, knowing that whoever had sent the half-machine observer might return with more force. We've done well so far, he said, keeping his voice low. But this is only the beginning. Someone will try to take these herbs from you. You need to be ready. Nayeli nodded, her eyes fixed on the glowing plants. I know, but I have a plan. The lab itself can help us protect them, and I've learned how to use the herbs' energy to create barriers. We can stop anyone without hurting them, if we are careful. Jace's eyebrows lifted. Smart. That's the kind of thinking that saves lives, not just brute strength. Before they could prepare further, a sharp metallic hum filled the chamber. From the shadows of the far wall, the half-machine figure emerged again, this time with reinforcements. Its red eyes glowed fiercely, scanning the lab. Behind it, two smaller robotic drones hovered silently, their weapons aimed at Nayeli and Jace. You cannot hide from me, the figure said, its voice distorted and mechanical. Those herbs belong to me now. Hand them over, or face consequences. Nayeli's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of why she had come this far. Her village depended on these herbs, and she would not give up. These herbs are not for you, she said firmly. They are for my people, and I will protect them no matter what. The figure stepped forward, its metallic limbs clicking against the floor. The drones moved closer, their sensors glowing. Jace positioned himself between Nayeli and the intruders, his hands ready to guide her if needed. We can do this without hurting anyone, he said. We just need to be smart. Nayeli nodded. She placed her hands carefully on the central console. The herbs pulsed in response, their glow intensifying. Energy began to flow through the lab's circuits, activating hidden mechanisms and protective barriers. The drones tried to advance, but invisible fields of energy stopped them in their tracks. They buzzed and whined, unable to break through. The half-machine figure stepped closer, striking a metal hand against the floor. Sparks flew, and the energy pulse wavered slightly. "You cannot resist me forever," it hissed. Nayeli's hands trembled, but she focused, sending more energy through the lab systems. The herbs glowed brighter, creating a dome of protective light around her and Jace. The drones were pushed back, struggling to maintain balance. The figure growled, its red eyes flashing with frustration. "You're clever," it said, "but cleverness will not save you." Jace stepped closer to Nayeli. "Keep going. You're stronger than you think. Remember, we can outsmart him." Nayeli thought quickly. The lab's energy could do more than just block the intruders. It could amplify the herb's natural power. Carefully, she moved to a secondary console and activated a sequence that released a controlled pulse through the lab. The pulse surged through the walls, lighting up hidden circuits and ancient machinery. The half-machine figure stumbled, sparks flying from its joints. The drones were forced to retreat, their engines sputtering. The energy pulse created a non-lethal force field, holding them at bay without causing harm. Nayeli felt a rush of satisfaction. Their plan was working. "You cannot," the figure hissed, but its voice was fading as the lab's energy overwhelmed its systems. Jace looked at Nayeli, his expression serious but proud. "You've done it. The herb's energy is strong, and the lab is protecting us. Now we just need to finish this safely." Nayeli nodded, her hands steady. She focused all her energy on the central console, channeling the herb's power through the lab and into the surrounding desert. The pulse spread outward, invisible but powerful, reaching her village and revitalizing the lands they had long feared were dying. The drought would end, the crops would grow, and the people would have water and food once more. Outside the lab, the desert seemed to hum in response. The wind carried a faint warmth, and the sands shimmered faintly under the moonlight. Nayeli could feel the connection between her village and the lab, a link made stronger by the herb's amplified energy. The half-machine figure and its drones finally retreated, overwhelmed by the combination of plant power and ancient technology. Nayeli let out a long breath, relief flooding her. She had protected the herbs, saved her village, and survived the dangers of the desert. Jace placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did more than I expected," he said. "You're brave, smart, and stronger than most people I've met." "Your village is lucky to have you."
Nayeli smiled, exhaustion and pride mixing together. "I couldn't have done it without you."
"You kept me safe, and you helped me think clearly when it mattered most." Jace nodded. "That's what partners do. We watch each other's backs." The lab was quiet once more, its walls glowing softly with the herb's energy. Nayeli moved through the chambers, checking the amplified plants and the systems she had activated. Everything was stable, and the protective barriers were holding. The herb's glow filled the lab with a warm, comforting light. I think we've done it," she said softly, almost in disbelief. Jace looked at her, eyes reflecting the soft glow. "Yes, you've saved your village. And you've proven that courage and intelligence are more powerful than any weapon." Nayeli took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace she had not felt in weeks. The market mockery, the desert chase, the threats, all of it had led to this moment. She had faced doubt, danger, and fear, yet she had not faltered. She had protected her people and their heritage. As dawn approached, the desert sky shifted from deep purple to shades of orange and gold. The hidden lab's glow blended with the sunrise, creating a scene that seemed almost magical. Nayeli stood at the entrance, looking out over the desert. Her village lay far in the distance, but she knew the energy pulse from the herbs would reach them, bringing life and hope back to the land. Jay stood beside her, watching quietly. "The journey isn't over," he said. "There will always be challenges. But you've proven you can face them?" Nayeli nodded. "I know, and now I know I'm not alone. With the right people and the right knowledge, we can face anything." The lab pulsed one last time, a final surge of energy confirming the success of their efforts. Nayeli smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment that went beyond words. She had grown, learned, and discovered a strength within herself she had never known. Together, she and Jace rode back toward the desert horizon, their path illuminated by the first rays of the sun. Nayeli's basket of herbs remained safe, and the desert seemed less intimidating than before. She had faced mockery, danger, and impossible odds, and emerged victorious. Her village would survive, the future looked brighter, and she had gained a partner in Jace, a friend, a guide, and a protector. The frontier had tested her, but Nayeli had passed with courage, wisdom, and heart. As they disappeared into the shimmering desert, the hidden lab's glow faded behind them, leaving a pulse of hope in the night. Nayeli knew that challenges would come again, but she also knew that with courage, cleverness, and the right companions, nothing was impossible. And so, the Apache girl and the lone cowboy rode on, ready to face whatever adventures awaited them in the vast, mysterious desert.